It's Guy Clarke here with Matt Addison for the latest episode of The Agenda on the Blood Red channel. With spring in the air and summer on the horizon, attention naturally beginning to turn to the summer transfer window and what could lay ahead for Liverpool. Start up the rumour mill and send it into overdrive. We're going to take a look at two high-profile forwards who've been linked with the Reds. Matt, thanks for joining me. And before we get into the players who have been linked, if you've clicked to watch or listen, you'll know we're going to talk about Erling Haaland and Paulo Dybala. But first of all, in terms of Liverpool and a need for a centre forward, what do you make of it? Is that going to be the priority this summer?
I think it probably is, yeah. Not necessarily in terms of an out-and-out number 9. I think my preference would be for Liverpool to try and replicate that Diogo Jota deal that they did last summer and have somebody that can play across all three of those positions. But I think certainly you do need to be looking at a player to come into that front line. Takumi Minamino, we don't think has probably got the long-term future at Liverpool that maybe we thought he did 12 months ago. It looks like Divock Origi could well be on his way out this summer. More speculation about that, and Liverpool potentially wanting to let him go has come out today as well. So it does look like there's going to be a bit of a shake-up. I wouldn't imagine that Firmino, Mane or Salah would be moving anywhere, but I think you need to supplement those. And obviously Jota, we saw the impact that he made last season. I think there's definitely potential for one more player to come in and have a similar impact, if not even better than Jota, to be honest.
We've spoken so much through the course of the season about Champions League football and things, but when you read these kind of rumours, Erling Haaland and Paulo Dybala both linked on the same day, it does get the juices flowing, doesn't it? It's exciting to talk maybe of the prospect of a new attacking player arriving. Let's start with Erling Haaland then. He's the hottest property in Europe, it seems, and could well be set to leave Borussia Dortmund this summer, albeit he's got a release clause of £66 million that will kick in next summer, but there seems to be a real clamour for his signature.
Yeah, 75 million euros, I think, isn't it, in 2022. So I think if you're Dortmund, you probably want to keep him for that extra season, knowing that that's always been the plan to let him go. But I suppose if they're not in the Champions League, it possibly forces their hand. And we know, obviously, that the impact economically of the pandemic might mean that some clubs can't spend as much this summer. But you'd imagine there'll still be a fair few players moving about, and Haaland probably is among the top of the list for a lot of these clubs. I think it makes perfect sense. Danny Murphy's been explaining why it makes sense for Liverpool to go out and break the bank for him today. I think that's something that is going to be spoken about, obviously, when you're a club as big as Liverpool, when there's a player potentially on the market, Erling Haaland being the one at this moment in time, in terms of him and Mbappe being the two players really that you're looking at to maybe take on the Messi and Ronaldo sort of mantle over the next few years. It does make a lot of sense. I think if Liverpool were to go for the Norwegian, though, they'd have a lot of competition. I think Chelsea very, very interested in him. Of course, the pandemic isn't going to have too much of an impact on what they can spend. We saw that last summer. And Manchester City as well. I think they've been linked a fair bit with him. A frightening prospect, really, if you add Haaland into the team that Manchester City have already got. So, yeah, there's going to be plenty of competition. But I think if you're Dortmund, you probably want to keep him for an extra season. But I think if they're outside of the Champions League, that could be a team that is picked apart. And Erling Haaland, alongside Jadon Sancho, probably the biggest of the names who could well be on the move.
Yeah, just sort of talking of some of his numbers, he scored 31 goals in 30 games this season, 10 goals in 6 games in the Champions League. And of course, he's been at Dortmund, 15 months now. He scored 47 goals in 48 games for them, and still all at the tender age of 20. He's 21 over the summer, so by the start of next season, he will be 21. So he's getting on a bit. But in terms of a transfer fee for him, we mentioned that release clause that kicks in next season, but if Dortmund do let him go a year early, they're probably going to be looking at 100 million pounds for him. If Liverpool aren't in the Champions League, surely that's going to put pay to that one.
Yeah, you'd think so. And you'd think Liverpool being out of the Champions League might put them out of the race anyway, in terms of where Haaland would want to go. I mean, obviously, he's still got a long, long way to go in his career. He could play for another 15 or 16 years yet. But you want every single season, if you're as good as what he is, to be in that Champions League. And as you say, his record in the Champions League suggests that he very much deserves to be in there. So I think that would be difficult. There's been some sort of speculation of maybe Dortmund are looking for 90 to 100 million, as you say. I mean, last summer they wanted 110 there or thereabouts for Jadon Sancho, and I would put Haaland's value above Sancho's, even taking into account, I think Sancho got 30 goal contributions or something along those lines last season. You look at what Erling Haaland's producing this season, it's another step above that. Again, I know it's obviously that's his primary job. He's not a winger, he's a centre forward. But you look at the numbers that he's putting in, to be scoring pretty much a goal every game, you are guaranteed to win things under him. You're guaranteed to be there or thereabouts in the Champions League. I think if you put Haaland into a better team than Borussia Dortmund, possibly that rate could even go even higher. So yeah, it's one of those. I think 90 million, even as ridiculous as it is to say, it would be an absolute bargain. And I think whoever does go for him this summer, I think, we saw it a little bit with Kai Havertz last summer with Chelsea. They thought that, he was a generational talent. He was one that they absolutely had to go for. Obviously, they paid a little bit over the odds. We haven't seen the best of him yet. But I think, Haaland would be probably even more the case than that. If you have to pay a little bit over the odds this summer, you have to go out and spend a bit more than you might be comfortable with. I think 90 million over the course of the next decade is just going to be an absolute bargain for Haaland.
Yeah, absolutely. Be interesting to maybe see where he does go. Let's get on to the other player then we're going to talk about. Paulo Dybala, the Juventus forward. He's 27, so in a different stage of his career. He's still got sort of 98 goals in just shy of 250 games for Juventus. But this one coming out today, Matt, and sort of seems a strange link all of a sudden to see Dybala linked with Liverpool. Where's it come from and what do we think of the link?
There's a couple of links, actually. One's come from Italy, which you might expect, and then another one from Spain as well, which seems to back up the fact that interest might be there from Liverpool. It's an interesting one. I mean, he's only got 12 months left on his contract come the summer. He's obviously a brilliant player, but he has missed a lot of this season through injury. So there's a few sort of factors there that you think might be at play behind this link. I think the first thing that stands out to you is the fact that his contract is running down. I suppose we've said similar for Mohamed Salah, maybe putting it out there that Real Madrid or Barcelona might be interested in that interview that he did a couple of months ago. Is this something similar? Maybe the agent is trying to drum up a bit of interest, maybe trying to entice Juventus to put a new contract on the table for him. So it's difficult to know how reliable this is at this moment in time. The links are not particularly strong, but they do suggest that Liverpool would be interested in the player. And I suppose you can believe that because he is an excellent player, maybe not quite world class, but certainly at his best, certainly just below that level, I would say. And, certainly has the possibility of getting to that. I mean, I say that, but he was named the best player in Italy last season when he was, on fire and playing every week. So certainly there's a lot of talent there. He's somebody that I'd be interested in, certainly in terms of a Liverpool perspective. You think of having that sort of false nine almost. He's not too dissimilar, I don't think, to Roberto Firmino. Maybe doesn't link the play quite as well, but he's one of those that can play as a 10, play as a 9, probably could play out wide as well if you really needed him to. So it does make sense in terms of stylistically. He has been linked a couple of times during Jurgen Klopp's time at Liverpool. Very nearly moved to Tottenham, didn't he, a couple of years ago? But yeah, it's an interesting one. There's been speculation in the past about him coming to England and maybe being interested in a move to the Premier League. So I'd say it's one to watch out for. And if the links do get stronger over the next few weeks, I think it's one that would make a little bit of sense, certainly footballing wise.
Yeah, dynamic left-footed attacking player, as you say, can play centre forward, can play just a bit deeper and even sort of off the right-hand side. We spoke right at the top of sort of maybe a second Diogo Jota maybe in the side to remould that attack. Dybala sort of looks as though he'd fit the bill in that respect. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, we know how good a player he is. The thing that has an edge with him over someone like a Jota or a player like that is he's obviously played at the top level. He's played for a big club. He's played in the Champions League. But again, it comes back to if Liverpool are not in the Champions League, would Dybala end up coming to Liverpool? I'm not so sure he would. I mean, even the price tag with him, the suggestion is that Juventus would want £60 million for him, which I think is a huge amount of money for somebody who you could get for free, essentially, the following year. You've got to take into account the injury situation as well. Liverpool obviously know everything there is to know about injuries at this moment in time, but Dybala has only played, I think, 16 games, 11 in the league this season because of injuries, missed the last few months. So it's one of those. I think he's obviously a top player, but I would have slight reservations in terms of the price. Obviously, that could be negotiated, but the injury situation as well. He's had a few different things, I think, not just this season, but throughout his career, he's had a couple of different niggles at different times. And that'll be something for Liverpool certainly to think about very carefully.
This is all, of course, speculation, so I'm just going to salt and pepper it up a bit and just add a bit more on top of it. Are we maybe seeing a bit of a different approach from Liverpool in the transfer market to what FSG and Michael Edwards initially did in building this Liverpool squad? If you think back to the Thiago deal last summer, reports emanated from the continent that with a year left and having been at Bayern Munich and won so many league titles, he was ready for a fresh new challenge. Dybala's been at Juventus 6 years, been a serial Serie A winner in that time, and with 1 year left on his deal, might be ready for the next stage and the next challenge within his career. Are we now maybe seeing a move away from building the stars at Liverpool and trying to bring in some high profile and ready-made stars to consolidate Liverpool's position?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, it all depends, doesn't it, on what sort of happens with these rumours, whether it is true that Liverpool do hold an interest in him. But I think the very fact that you looked at that rumour and thought it could be possible that Dybala would be interested in a move to Liverpool, even possibly without Champions League football, I think, obviously it would make it a lot more likely if Liverpool were in the Champions League. But I do think there's a possibility, even if they were outside of that top four, that he might be interested. I think I'm right in saying that Tottenham, when they agreed a fee with Juventus, I don't think they were in the Champions League at that particular moment in time. I know, obviously, he didn't end up moving there, but it's certainly, something for Liverpool to think about. We saw it, obviously, as you say, with Thiago. The difference here is that, Thiago was a £25 million signing. This would be considerably more than that, I would think. And I suppose it is a sort of move towards those better, more established players and slightly older, more experienced players, perhaps, but it all depends on how much truth there is in this. I think there's a strong possibility that this is just a move to try and get a new contract out of Juventus at a time when they're probably not in a massive rush, given that he's been out injured. But yeah, look, it's one of those that I'd certainly be very keen for Liverpool to get done. I think he could be a really interesting player for them to look at, and it'd be interesting to see if there's anything more that comes off the back of this, because at the moment it is just speculation, but it's speculation that does make sense.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting to see if anything does happen with it. Make sure you keep across the Liverpool Echo website, the live daily transfer blog, rounding up all the top Liverpool transfer stories there for you. Here on Blood Red, of course, we'll continue to bring you plenty of content. Remember to share, like, rate, review, and subscribe wherever it is you are listening or watching our content. But from myself, Guy Clarke, and Matt Addison, thanks for joining us. That's all for now.